I was Bumble's first and sole recruiter for a while. I worked at a lot of different startups. And there was this underlying theme of like, success is the number one focus, no matter your migraines, no matter your pain, no matter like you and your body and your brain. I was getting these night terrors where I would wake up and I could feel these energetic presences in my room. And whether it's real or not, whatever, that doesn't really matter. It felt real. And so there was one night where I wake up and this dark hooded figure charges me. And the next thing I know, I'm standing in my kitchen downstairs and I'm holding a kitchen knife. And I am so sure, Erin, I'm so sure that there is someone or something in my room just like lurking in the corner waiting for me to come back upstairs.
Greetings, I am Erin Patton, also known as Master L, and welcome to today's very special episode of the Meta Business Millennial podcast. I am just so honored to always have the opportunity to bring guests on my show, and that's why I always call it special when there's guests here, because I don't have to just like ramble by myself. And if you're checking us out for the first time, I encourage you to subscribe to my channel at I am Erin Patton and across social media at I am Erin Patton. And of course, if this message resonates with you, share it with a friend, like it, comment below. We want to hear from you. And without further ado, I would love to introduce an Austin-based entrepreneur, a woman of all trades, I must say, creative trades. Haley Scruggs. She is a storyteller, a singer-songwriter, and also a coach for queer women in tech. And queer and career women in tech, okay? It's both of them.
Ooh, queer careers. Let's go.
Yeah, queer careers. And I want to just give a little backstory because I've been doing a lot of connecting this year. Well, since I moved to Austin, I have been very intentional about utilizing the internet, utilizing LinkedIn more specifically to connect with women in Austin and Texas. And I've met so many amazing women. I have to say I had to actually like stop the connecting because it was just, I couldn't keep up. And I really am intentional about the connections that I make and the community that I'm building. And when I met Haley, we immediately connected and bonded, I must say. Like there was certainly like chemistry there in terms of our desires for wanting the world to be a better place, wanting to support people, wanting to help people, and wanting to do so with love. And so with all of that, the intro, I want to get into you. Like, tell us more about you, Haley, and you can go as far back as you'd like or as far forward as you'd like, but I really want us to understand what makes you you.
Oh, thank you. Master L, right? Master L, is that it?
Yeah.
I'm so, first off, so grateful, so honored to be here. And I love that you just walked through like how you and I connected. It felt so serendipitous. Mm-hmm. And when you reached out to me, it is also as this year. So I launched my coaching business this year, and I have been seeped in the power of communifying and activating your community, mm-hmm. and like connecting with people you know, but also really boldly and fearlessly connecting with strangers. And so you did to me exactly what I am encouraging my clients to always be doing. And it was just like, this is the magic of women and community. And yeah, you and I got on a Zoom having never met before, and it's just like, this is the power. This is the power of women connecting, and especially like female entrepreneurs in Austin too. We're I think like 30% of founders in Austin are women.
Wow.
So
thank you for
that. We gotta stick together. Oh my gosh. Okay, so what was the question about me? What's my story?
Who are you?
Yeah. And so for the listeners, even, as she asked me that question, she was like, well, how do you want me to introduce you? And that's, I think many people, especially entrepreneurs, but especially women who are really ambitious and driven and career focused and high performing and creative and, musical, and we are all so multi-passionate. And we are living in this sort of corporate world that does not feel like it fully honors the multi-passionate. So I am, for my soul, I'm a storyteller. I've been singing and writing songs from a very, very young age. And I guess I'll connect that in, because this is ultimately, like, when I think about my story, I mean, all of our stories start at birth. I won't make this too long, but I had a really traumatic birth. I was born and raised in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Only things you need to know about that: known for R.J. Reynolds tobacco, and Krispy Kreme donuts. So that's what my hometown was about.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot about addiction, about toxicity. So yeah, so
Yes.
keep going.
The high school that I went to that was like walkable to my house was R.J. Reynolds High School. And we went to the Reynolda house every year. So it was very much like a glorified R.J. Reynolds tobaccos, what our city was built on. So I was supposed to be born early April. I ended up being born end of January. So 28 weeks, like right when little baby's organs are like, we probably can handle this on our own, but it's going to be tough. So I spent several months in the NICU. Apparently I hit my mom's pubic bone on the way out. I had this big bruise on my face. And of course I've been hearing this birth story my whole life. But to connect it back, one of the impacts of that birth, we later realized, is for the first 30 years of my life, I had daily headaches and daily migraines. Like, not a day went by when I didn't have a headache. I thought, I remember being a really young person and realizing, like, oh, you mean you not everyone feels like absolute crap when they wake up? Not everyone feels miserable and kind of trapped, and I thought it was like, that's just how our bodies work. And so my childhood, there are so many wonderful things about it, but a big part of my childhood with my mom was this desperate journey of trying to find relief. So, like, I've been to, 15 plus chiropractors. By the time I was 10, we were going to the Headache Wellness Center. I had MRIs done. And I continually worked with both, like, corporate doctors, I don't know what you would say, like the sort of traditional doctors, and a lot of alternative medicine.
Yeah.
And
Like
kept
Western
getting,
medicine versus Eastern.
exactly, yeah. And just kept getting told, like, oh wow, we've never seen this before. And so at a really young age, there was a bit of pride to, like, ooh, I'm so special that no one can figure my chronic pain out. But there was this underlying hopelessness and, like, I am truly broken. I am unfixable. And one of the things that I learned was, like, misery and hustle, that's what gets you through. You're gonna be miserable and in pain, so you have to figure out how to white knuckle, how to grit your teeth, grit and bear it, and just kind of accept that. So one of the ways that I really channeled a lot of my pain and anxiety and depression and disordered eating, and all this stuff that I think was really around, like, I don't have control over all this pain. What can I control?
Yeah.
But one of the ways I channeled that was my music and my songwriting. So much of my music from when I was a kid, I never dared share because it's like, oh, I'm singing about suicide. And, like, the relief that I bet it would feel to put a bullet through my brain, because it would release the tension of this, like, ever existing migraine. And so I felt like there was this whole, like, sort of inner part of me that I wasn't really allowed to share because it was way too dramatic, way too depressing. And it made me feel, yeah, really, really isolated and really alone. And that connected to my career. I was always really drawn to very intense, very high performing sorts of careers. So I did a door-to-door book selling internship in college, and then I got my foot in the door in Austin. I came to tech, got my foot in the door with sales, pivoted to very like fast-paced, high-growth recruiting. I was Bumble's first and sole recruiter for a while. I worked at a lot of different startups, and there was this underlying theme of like, success is the number one focus, no matter your migraines, no matter your pain, no matter like you and your body and your brain. And so I would continually find myself in these like extreme overworking and extreme burnout cycles that I just thought was like, well, this is just how it is and how you have to be. Productivity is your worth. You work through the migraines, you work through the pain to have this grand idea of, you know, what we're promised success, like the golden handcuffs and all the sort of things that I see so many women, really high-performing women in tech striving for. And it wasn't, this is a long story, I'm sorry.
No, keep going. This is great because I have some good kind of...
Okay, perfect. One of there's several different pivotal moments, but one of the pivotal moments was I was still working at Bumble. I was suicidal. I was, having these extreme bouts of depression and sort of disassociation and, super burnt out, super exhausted, even though I was working at my dream job. I had a very loving, supportive boyfriend, but I ended up going on this retreat, this yoga and wellness and breathwork meditation retreat with Black Swan Yoga, which is a yoga studio or studios. I'm sure they're everywhere, but they're here in Austin too.
Yeah.
And I'd finally gotten to this place, and this retreat really kind of, one of the big things I realized was that first off, the sort of acceptance that these migraines are how my body has learned to keep me safe. And so even at it, you know, we assume when I was a baby, it's like, well, that was my way of sounding the alarm of, you know, I can't breathe. I'm in this NICU. I'm alone. I need help. I need my mom. And, you know, so it was like having to, I wrote my migraines, this really long, loving letter that then I like released into the fire. And it was just full of so much compassion for like, thank you for doing your best to keep me safe. Thank you for sounding the alarm when things were getting ignored. And just having so much love and gratitude and compassion. Because that, when you're wanting to really release something, I've found that like you can't truly release it until you honor it and love it and thank it.
And thank you.
So it was this very pivotal moment, and I cried and cried and cried. And you know, I won't tell you, it's not like, and then the next day I had no migraines and I haven't had migraines since. No, definitely not. Like I still get them. But it's been such a healing journey. And the first step, I say the first step was like acknowledging and loving, but it's also the sort of mindset switch of I am not broken. I am capable of magic and miracles. I am capable of healing myself and really believing in my own agency and ability to do the things that I've been paying all these professionals
Come on now.
to do that they haven't been doing.
Right.
And yeah, and of course, the around this time, like I broke up with my boyfriend, and I very soon came out as queer. I left Bumble and went to a different job. I started singing again. I had spent years in my 20s. It was like, well, I'm not amazing. I'm not the best at it, so I'm just not going to do it. And I even wrote myself, like at this retreat, they have you write a letter of like, a year from now, what are all the things that you're doing and achieving? And it's crazy. I've looked at that letter since, and I don't mention singing anywhere in this letter.
Yeah.
So I was so disconnected from myself and my alignment, and my sort of, one of my spiritual purposes of being on this earth is singing and sharing and almost channeling. Like I've started to realize like, oh, I do kind of get into a channeling space sometimes where it just flows out of me.
Yeah.
And how obvious now to look back and realize like that was completely blocked. And a few months after this retreat is when I really like got my guitar out of my closet, and I decided like, oh yeah, I need to start singing and playing and creating again. So that's a piece of my sort of burnout journey. I definitely continually, like after Bumble, I worked at several more startups. And I got to that successful, like head of recruitment, managing a team, working at a mission-driven startup that prioritizes DEI, and like such a diverse team of amazing, and like all the things. And yet again, I felt myself at the height of the career, and I was my most burnt out I had ever been. I had lost all this weight because I wasn't eating. I had severe imposter syndrome, my migraines.
That's a great place to kind of stop for a second, because
Please,
I really want
stop me.
to really reflect on the journey to that place that you have been on, essentially. And, I have to first say that oftentimes our birth story in our younger years are indicators of what this life will be. And I had a very similar kind of very traumatic like birthing and young childhood that has shaped so much of my life journey. And I want to just really highlight that, you being separate from your mother, like you having to really learn how to operate on your own and then protect yourself in this painful way, in this creating this structure in your being that didn't exist for you in your mom's womb. You had to create that for yourself. She actually didn't have the capacity to do it for you. And yes. And then that, and then obviously it manifested in her continuing to put you off on other people to figure out what's wrong with you, when in reality it was just you who needed to go on that journey for yourself. And yes. So often, so many people, whether they're listeners or followers of either of us, our community, have had these journeys where we, in many ways, kind of have been abandoned by our parents. They can only do so much. They brought us into this world, and God damn it, that's about as good as they could do and keep us alive. Because our lineage didn't have the tools to raise who I consider us to be sort of this generation of divine beings in human form that are really here to shift and change the trajectory of our world. Yeah. And so they really did their very best. And, as I look even into your journey with the migraines, and the pain and being able to like let it go, I feel like there's so much alignment too. And just to share very briefly, like I was born, premature. My mom, had fainting spells and a lot of difficulty carrying me. I learned she had multiple miscarriages before I was even conceived. And so, in many ways, I had to hold space for her as she carried me energetically. And it's interesting that you brought that up, because I was thinking about that. As I was writing this morning, I'm in the process of writing a book about my life. And yeah, and that was and I didn't talk about that, but I was just thinking about it and how I was born 2 months premature, and I spent majority of my first weeks isolated. And
Yes.
what that means, for a being coming into this world is it's an indicator of like you about to be on your own, okay?
Yes.
Energetically, spiritually, emotionally, and that very much was my life. And there's so many ways in which we try to provide protection for ourselves, and because we're so young and we don't have the consciousness, we do it in the best way we know how. And so you being able to see your migraines as providing that structure, that protection for yourself is very
Yeah.
beautiful, a beautiful awakening and awareness for you. And I hope that other listeners, whether you're going through physical ailments or physical trauma or relational trauma, just understand that it's part of your journey into your freedom, because these are all lessons that we needed to learn as we essentially toxically or unhealthily kept ourselves safe and alive on this earth. Yeah. And so I really just want to, commend you for that awareness. And there's just so many alignments, because I actually ended up, when I first started my own spiritual journey, my first, I guess, foray into it was yoga teacher training. And I did yoga teacher training at Black Swan in Houston. And
Oh
so,
my gosh. No way.
yeah. And so when you said that, I was like, of course I know Black Swan. Yeah. And so I didn't do retreats with them, but there was a lot of reflection, a lot of self-reflection, and a lot of physical movement, because I grew up dancing. And so dancing was my way of healing. So for you, it was singing,
Beautiful.
songwriting, storytelling. And for me, even though I'm much more of a writer, storyteller now, I definitely didn't see that I had that pathway as a youth, and I instead was more physically engaged. So I was very athletic and danced all the time, and dance was my emotional release. Like I did lyrical dance, contemporary dance,
I did
and a
lyrical
lot of
too.
my
Yeah.
a lot of my emotional processing happened through movement. So Black Swan really created that space also for me to move my body, because I was doing yoga sometimes 2-3 times a day for 30
Amazing.
90 days, because it was like the 200 hours. Plus I did a January, everyday yoga challenge. So there was a lot of movement energy that I needed to move through my body, emotions that I needed to move through my body. So and that was also like in my mid 30s. So I just saw so many similarities in my story and your story that I wanted to share, and also just, honor you and acknowledge to the journey, because it takes that work to be able to see, where we need to awaken, what we need to heal, and also our environment. And that leads me to my next question for you, in terms of like you getting into the corporate world and being able to recognize, okay, wow, I'm in this organization that's supposedly changing the world and cares about diversity and cares about these things, but now you're now have come out as being queer. Now you have a whole new set of identity, challenges that you're reckoning with in these very unique, if I could say, come on, like boxed in spaces. And I
Yeah.
really would love to explore more of how you navigated those spaces and how that led you then to kind of go venture out on your own.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. As you speak, there are like 5 different threads I want to follow down. So I love how you connected that. And yeah, again, all the sort of synchronicities we have. And just as you were saying that, I'll touch back on yoga real quick. Just yesterday, as I was journaling, so I write every day. Sounds like you're a big writer. It's so exciting for your book. That was one of as I'm planning for my intentions for the new year, I've gotten really clear being in a physical yoga practice is so important to me and so aligning. And so that's something that I'm reprioritizing. But it was also this yoga retreat and meeting one of the leaders. She was my first experience of working with a coach. And so it was how that ignited the spark of like, I know that I want to do this and be a coach. I know I'm not ready yet, but I know that like this is what I want to be doing. And so I kind of had that laying under the surface as I continued through my career. And my dad is also a consultant and a business coach who he is an entrepreneur, launched and ran his own business most of my life. So I had that as my backdrop. But back to your question, which is a great question, because just queer and corporate don't always jive. And let me say too, like, queer means something different to everyone. But when I talk about queer, just from I think of, it's when people are othered.
That part.
And basically anything that is not the sort of black and white, linear path, anything that falls outside of that. And of course there's so many different overlapping things, but I got into corporate through this very intense door-to-door book selling internship, and that just reinforced, like, productivity is your worth, and as long as you can out hustle everyone else, you will be successful. And that's what I built my career on. And so much of my career, I think the fact that I was so loud and candid and bold and colorful, it helped me stand out, but it also was one of the things that would I felt like, the only image I can think of is I felt like this, like, shiny shooting star that as long as I was in a corporate job, having to, live off of the vision and values of the company, I felt like this shooting star that needed to, like, ricochet all over the place. And no matter what job I got into, even when it was, Bumble, like, we're ending misogyny, and at this company where we talk about all people welcome DEI, like, it was always in a really small pot that had a lid over it. And it was like, I need to, like, burst out of here.
Yeah.
And I kept finding myself, like, speaking too candidly. There was one company where, like, I talked at an all hands. I was always really kind of bold and comfortable talking about racism, and we're built on a racist society, and so to say that our company is not a racist company is not true, and I just wanted to, like, be vibrating with leaders and living in this space where we were talking about us as whole beings in this society. And, like, corporate, I just finally realized that, like, my most aligned, expressed, candid self, at this point in my life, does not get to shine her most authentically when I am in a corporate role. So I have 10 years in technical recruiting, but that is very much like, I am representing the company, and I am representing our mission and our values, and, like, I report to HR. Don't get me started on the revelations, freaking finally, of everything happening with SHRM right now. I don't know if
terms. I don't even know.
Basically, SHRM, which is like the institutional, we are HR.
Yeah.
It's now coming out that SHRM, and they're built on, like, we are anti-bias, anti-discrimination, and SHRM is basically, like, racist as hell. And there are all these different things that are finally coming out. There's a big court case happening. And so many people, on LinkedIn are like, yeah.
Good.
Good. Yeah. So I lost my train of thought there, but
you were talking about how boxed in you felt, and you really wanted to create more of this like a conversational, open landscape in corporate, and that didn't exist for you.
Yeah. And
especially being in HR, now that we think about your role, like, you were actually in a role where you were meant to be creating a safe space for for people in the company, and you were like in many ways like aligned with the chief people officer, like shaping the culture and creating the environment, and you were feeling in many ways, I guess, limited and even doing their basic responsibilities, it sounds.
Yeah, and there absolutely were some companies where it was like, all right, we have ERGs, and I can be out loud with like my pronouns and my sexuality, and like that was a great experience, but a rare experience. And I felt so viscerally that like I cannot just, because I go all in on my job. I'm of course I'm detangling my identity with my work. I say now as an entrepreneur that's like launched her own business and is working to build that. But it just felt like I am going all in on this one very black and white bucket, and I have like 5 other buckets that are starving. And so that was a big part of figuring out this sort of realignment is, what are my values? What are my values? And what are the things that excite me, energize me, light me up? And looking at, okay, well, I can keep being in technical recruiting, but I realized it was a zone of competence, and I got a lot of like accolades and positive feedback, but it was not my zone of genius. And so now being able to, like when I work with people, like the people that I am coaching and working with, they are my clients, rather than, oh, I'm going to talk to this candidate, and maybe like, I would always be like, well, let's talk offline. Let me give you some feedback. Let me talk offline that's like unofficial with the sort of, oh, sorry, blah, 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 the sort of corporate, sort of thing. And I guess I'll loop it back to like another sort of I say all this stuff as if I've learned my lessons, and that's the thing about lessons. You kind of have to continually learn them over and over.
Yeah.
So,
and how these experiences then led you to want to leave and create your own practice. Like that's really kind of just like, what was that catalyst moment for you?
Yeah. So my last corporate job, I mentioned it. It was my dream, right? Head of recruitment. I had a team I was managing. I was making more money than I thought I'd ever make. I had negotiated, I freaking nailed the negotiation. I got a 42% increase, and they leveled up my title, like all this stuff. And I was there for 6 months, and those 6 months were, it was exactly what I had searched for, because it was what I was good at. And what am I good at? I'm a workhorse. I am good at joining startups where they need to grow so fast. I'm good at deprioritizing everything else except the job I'm doing, because my imposter syndrome is so loud. And so I got to this point where I was, and this goes back to energy, whenever I'm super burnt out and depleted. Of course, my migraines were at an all-time high. My anxiety was at an all-time high. Yeah. I was starting to get not a little depressed, starting to sort of have thoughts of like, what's the point? Do I want to be here? And something that's always happened to me throughout my life, I'll get these little hauntings. I was getting these night terrors where I would wake up and I could feel these energetic presences in my room. And whether it's real or not, whatever, that doesn't really matter. It felt real. And so there was one night where I wake up and this dark hooded figure charges me. And the next thing I know, I'm standing in my kitchen downstairs and I'm holding a kitchen knife. And I am so sure, Aaron, I'm so sure that there is someone or something in my room just like lurking in the corner waiting for me to come back upstairs. And it's interesting that, so at the time I had two new little kittens and they both had ringworm. So they were in the guest bedroom quarantined. So they had ringworm. I was having these like, yeah, extreme like migraines, and my brain was on fire, and my house had a rat infestation. So like everything was on fire. And that night of like waking up, fight or flight, just like adrenaline pumping, so sure that I was being attacked. It was like, okay, this is not sustainable. No job, no amount of money, no amount of anything is worth the misery that I am putting myself into. I said yes to this job. I brought all this stuff upon me. So that was a wake-up call of, and then a few weeks later, I ended up getting laid off for the fourth time. And so that was really like, oh, thank God. Thank God, thank God. I wasn't meant to be here more than 6 months. This was a learning lesson, and I wasn't meant to be here for more than 6 months. And it was really just the push that I needed of like, I can keep doing what I'm doing. I can go find another scrappy startup. I can go and succeed and get burnt out as hell because that's my pattern. I can do all of that over and over, or I can really go all in on what I freaking want to do.
This is like obviously like a breaking point.
Yes. Everything was in flames. Everything was in flames. My brain, I could not turn the static down. I would wake up in the middle of the night, like panicked. I actually have a therapist, and we explored. It was like, am I experiencing bipolar? Which I did not end up getting diagnosed with,
but it was so severe. You were really questioning your sanity.
Yes. And I had never, so I do have ADHD. I'm neurodivergent, and I had never experienced to the extreme. And again, the only way I can think about it is like a tea kettle that starts to make noise when it's letting off steam. Like I developed these vocal tics. I went to the beach with my family like a few months after starting this job, and they were just like, what's happening? I was like malfunctioning. So my little kitties had ringworm.
Literally, you're malfunctioning. You developed like Tourette's.
Yes. Yeah, I had this like, whatever. My sister, I remember her being like, hearing me in the bathroom. She was like, was that you talking? I was like, oh yeah, that was me. So yeah, everything was.
It's not funny, but it's not funny. It's not funny, but we're laughing because of how traumatic and tragic this is, guys. Like, I just want to pause there that our body oftentimes is our signal, our loudest signal. And we talked about her migraines before. You know, for me, I had severe IBS. I had intense drinking issues. I had, I couldn't sleep. I also was getting headaches, and my hair was falling out. I mean, there are so many ways. This is like late 20s, 30s too. There are so many ways in which our body signals, help me, help me. It's like our body is signaling for our soul. Like our soul is trapped in this, like you said, malfunctioning being, and our body often is telling us, and we're so quick, like you demonstrated with your mom, to run to the doctor, to seek outside help, to seek external expert, opinions, diagnoses, medications. And what people don't realize is, yes, these absolutely serve a purpose, but oftentimes that purpose is just to numb the symptoms. It never actually solves the root cause of the problem. And so when we don't listen to ourselves and we just are constantly explaining away or diagnosing away or medicating away our symptoms, we never solve the problem. And so clearly, obviously, you're going to get to this problem solving, aspect of your journey. But I just want to highlight that for people who may be finding themselves in situations where they're getting diagnosed with autoimmune diseases, they're having constant, migraines, they're going to all these specialists, they're spending hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to seek treatments for ailments that they themselves haven't even gone inside to ask them, like, what do I need? Like, why am I responding this way? And not that there's anything wrong. You're not asking yourself, what's wrong with me? You're asking yourself, what do I need? Why am I responding this way? Why am I acting this way? You get curious about those issues and those problems. And so, I would love to hear kind of like what that curiosity led to for you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that's just so powerful, especially for people who experience chronic pain. Like the number one thing that it's like, I see you and I know that your pain is real. This is not about like, oh, if you just change your thinking, like you're manifesting this pain yourself. But absolutely, our bodies always send help signals and warning signals. And so whenever I am burnt out myself, or I'm working with my clients who come to me incredibly burnt out, the first step is really identifying what are the underlying, because the burnout is the tip of the iceberg. The burnout is the tip of the iceberg. And so figuring out, well, what are the actual beliefs that are underneath the beliefs that are fueling your habits that are continually leading to burnout. So for me, mine was like, I am not good enough. This is my first time in this head of recruitment job. Everyone's going to find out that I'm an imposter and I over negotiated my way to this role. I'm underqualified. I am not competent enough. And my productivity is my worth. And therefore, as long as I am just overproducing in every arena work-wise, then great. But that was so clearly, leading me into hell. And I say hell because
like
burnout is,
burn for a reason.
Yeah. Crispy. One of my coaching friends, she calls it crispy fried. She was crispy fried burnout. And so then, and I'll give another good example of one of my clients who, like, every time she wakes up, she immediately checks her Slack, and just kind of immediately jumps into like, wake up and now I work. And, you can't just say like, oh, okay, well, we're going to give you a morning routine and we're going to set boundaries and we're going to time block. Because what we really dug through is that the reason she's constantly checking her Slack is she is seeking affirmation of her worthiness. As in, I check Slack to make sure that no fire is happening and I'm not needed. So it's like in checking Slack, you're making sure that you're competent, you're valued. If people need you, you're ready. And so she had created this habit of doing that, even though she was able to kind of walk through like, well, no one ever needs me before this time. And if they do, it's never urgent or high priority. And so that was one of the core beliefs that we really dug into, is like, my value is my, not presence, but like, availability. What word am I looking for? But yeah, like my availability and my, but the first thing that happens when you start to really honor and set boundaries is people, first off, people don't even notice. I've talked to so many women who have become mothers, have had to reshift their priorities. And they're like, I used to, give my 120% effort. Now I give 70% effort and no one has noticed anything except all the difference is how you are like, refilling yourself up. So first step is what are the underlying beliefs that are fueling the patterns causing burnout? Really digging into boundaries, and boundaries are so not overused, but I think a lot of people are like, well, I don't know what boundaries are. And the next step for really, before you can say what your boundaries are, it's let's tap into your energy. Looking at your day, your week, like what are the things that you are doing that consistently give you energy? What are the things you are doing that consistently drain your energy? Yeah. And that's one of the things that I realize is like, if I'm being honest about being a recruiter, I love talking to people, but I was spending so much of my time details, scheduling, admin, balancing, and so much of my time in the roles that I was choosing for myself, which is like, I'm going to be the sole head of recruitment, but do all this stuff, was doing things that like just left me exhausted and completely drained and unfulfilled. And so realizing like being a recruiter is no longer in line with my soul and my living a life that feels aligned and energetically good.
And that's perfect to really answer that question, because when we're able to have that realization that we're no longer living in alignment with, in many ways, our life purpose, then it enables us to let that shit go. And I really love how you walk through kind of what you practice with your clients in terms of identifying how are you spending your energy on a weekly basis. Those are one of the first things that I do in my workshops is what I call like an energy audit or energy assessment, where we're really looking at like where's the energy leaking and where are we being, fulfilled in terms of how we spend our time, who we talk to, what work are we doing? Because a lot of people are like, oh, energy, what's all this energy stuff, Erin? Well, let's just talk about it very practically. Like, how are you spending your time, and where is your attention going? Where your attention goes, energy flows. So that's really the energy is your attention. And how we can be more intentional then about how we spend our time, to your point around, I used to give 120%. Now I give 70%, because the intention that I want out of this, it's not actually the reciprocation of it. I'm not getting 120% back in terms of what I'm giving. I'm giving like 50. So 70, a 20% gap is a little bit better, So I really am, aligned with this. This is the work that we do with the meta business world. This is the work that I do even in how I manage my business, Raw Beauty, is really thinking about the intentionality of what we are, who we are, and what we do. And, I really want, to start wrapping this up, because we shared a lot about your story, but I want to give listeners an opportunity to learn more about your offerings and also how they can get in touch with you and dig deeper with you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm hesitant to say my Instagram handle because I'm currently actively changing it. But I'll share more about my coaching offerings. I've really been working. So I launched in April, and so this year has been an amazing year of getting in tune and refining. So I help queer women in tech who are high performing, often have ADHD or think they might not be diagnosed, but really high performing queer women in tech who are really burnt out. They might not know what they want to do next, but they know this ain't it.
Yeah, come on now.
I help queer women reactivate their energy, their vision, so they can get clear, they can get visible, and get hired. So my program is a 12-week program, a lighter way to career clarity, and there are 3 phases. The first phase is reconnecting, and I like to think about it as like when we're building a fire. First, before you start laying down the twigs and stuff, you clear you clear the old coals, you set the stage, you clear things away. So reconnecting is what you talked about. Energy audits, getting really clear on what's happening right now that you don't want. I call it your my ow list, because my ow means don't want in Thai, and I taught English in Thailand for a year. So your my ow list, all the things that you're really clear you don't want. And then, really going through and getting clear on what energizes you, what you used to do as a kid, that you're completely ignoring. What is your vision that you're going towards? Reactivating your self-worth, your confidence, all these things that get completely broken down when you stay at a job that you hate, when you get so burnt out that you're numbing, when you get laid off and your self-worth is completely tanked. So really reconnecting. The second stage is reigniting. So getting clear on what is your story, how you talk about your branding, whether, your resume, LinkedIn, and then the last stage is rising and moving forward, taking action. So we do mock recruiter screens, incredible salary negotiations to get you significant increases in your next role. And I will say I've had folks come to me where they want their next role and then they've pivoted into freelancing. I have some folks that are clear they want to go to another company, and then I have some folks that are looking to get promoted. So, any sort of career pivots, I help you get clear, reconnect, and get what it is that you want. So
that's awesome. And they can find you where?
They can find, so as of now, it's at Haley Irene Sings on Instagram, also Haley Scruggs on LinkedIn. And if you want to sign up for my newsletter, that's specifically for burnt out women in tech. I share stories, inspiration, tips and tricks, all that stuff. It's HaleyScruggs.com. So you can sign up for my newsletter there. So those are the ways that you can connect with me.
I love that so much. And Haley, I'm so, so grateful that you took some time to chat with us on the show, share your
my
beautiful,
honor,
vulnerable story, and really, get, to the nitty gritty of what we need to do as women, as entrepreneurs, to really lift ourselves up out of the stickiness of sometimes what the corporate culture can be, or the boxiness of it, and really thrive, despite, I really know that entrepreneurship is certainly a path, corporate is certainly a path, and they both have a place in people's lives. And totally. I never try to discourage people one way or the other. The goal is to really find your happiness, find your joy, in wherever you are. Lead from wherever you are is how I always like to say it. And so I just want to thank you again for your time, and for all of you who really enjoyed this podcast. If you made it this far, certainly tap in with Haley, and of course follow me at I am Erin Patton across social media platforms. I also have my website, erinpatton.com, to really dig deeper into issues around business and spirituality and finding purpose in the work that you do. And of course, I recently launched my beauty brand, Raw Beauty, which is rabeauty.co, and actively selling hair products now on the site. So definitely check those out. And in the meantime, of course, I send you so much love and light. We want to hear from you. Drop us comments, send us messages. We love you all so much. Peace.
Peace. Thank you so much, Erin.
You're welcome. Did you really love this episode of the Meta Business Millennial Podcast? Well, I am honored, and I appreciate you subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends, because your feedback allows us to co-create more enlightened conversations. And if you're interested in growing your soul now, head over to my website, erinpatton.com, to find all the show notes, links, and free resources to get your energy activated today. In the meantime, stay bright, my friends. Much love and light. Peace.